Hi, I'm Keith Mitchell. This is my lovely better half, Gayle. Today, we really wanted to talk about mercy and forgiveness, and there's some powerful testimony here that we're going to just begin to share. I've often shared a lot of my testimony as I've traveled the world and preach, and my wife's included in that, but there's just aspects of her testimony that I think really need to be heard. It's quite an amazing story. We don't have a lot of time, but we'll try to touch it, Gayle, as best we can. So when I met you, we got connected, and I had walked away from my faith. I'll cry. I had thought I committed an unpardonable sin and that I was headed straight to hell. So I just began to eat, drink, and be merry for I die. And you were living a life that was kind of similar. And so it was kind of like Bonnie and Clyde in the world. And we did a lot of crazy things together. We actually, at one point, were swingers. Nothing that we're proud of, but we're thankful that we've got redeemed from that.
Yes.
But I remember that we come back from a weekend of partying, and I was really not doing so well. I would be in the shower, and I'd be having these arguments with God, like, oh yeah, if all sin came through Adam and we're more reconciled to Christ, then how comes more people go to hell than heaven? Hey, I didn't ask to be born. And you would be like, who are you talking to, right? And so I just want to share a little bit with what happened, because I could tell the testimony. I'm so used to telling it, but I want you to share it. How you actually came to Christ from a Lutheran background that really didn't really have a relationship with Jesus.
Yeah, my dad was a Lutheran, went to church every Sunday, sang in the choir, and that's all I knew. I went through catechism class, but really never had any relationship with Jesus. Just knew that he was up there. I remember the Easter movies, things like that. So I believed in Jesus. I believed there was a God, but that was it. I never had any personal relationship. So when I met you, and I didn't understand even what a backslidden Christian was. So when you walked away from your faith, that's kind of where we met up. And I just remember, you would play, I remember you were still playing some Christian music, and I'd be like, what's this? And I'd put some hip hop music on, stuff like that, dance music, and I'm like, oh, this is weird, But yeah, when you were talking about that weekend, we came home, and I knew every time we'd come away from a weekend like that, you'd be so miserable. You'd be, you would just be coming down, because at that time.
It's crazy, right?
Yeah.
Because you fill yourself with all these things.
Yeah.
Trying to, grab the gusto. This is all I have. Let's just get it. And it never made me happy. I mean, I'm not telling you that it didn't feel good. I'm not telling you that, there's not pleasure there, but I call it now the poison of pleasure.
Right.
Designed to take you away from
Absolutely.
the Lord, right?
Absolutely. So when we would come down from our partying, that's when I would hear you in the shower talking to God, and I thought you were crazy. Yeah. I was like, who is he talking to? You're just so crazy. And
like
I remember
Lieutenant Dan and Forrest Gump.
Yes,
Yeah.
pretty much, right?
Yeah.
And I just remember, just wanting to just zone out, blank out. I would take sleeping pills and just be like, party's over kind of thing. Yeah. But yeah, I remember we came home from that weekend, and I was like, I don't understand why you're not happy. Like, we have so much fun in the world's eye. We'd be going to these parties, we'd be flying to Vegas or Miami, and going to these who's parties, and like you said, everything is there in the world's eye. But you came home and you knew, because of your walk with the Lord before, that wasn't right.
Yeah.
So I didn't know that at the time.
So, and I'll never forget this. If God could use Balaam's donkey, right? How he used me to reach you. Not even trying to be an evangelist like I am now. And I remember I said to you, Gayle, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm a backsliding Christian, and this ship is sinking. And I'm pretty certain that I'm headed straight to hell. But you're my best friend, and I don't want to take you there with me. I said, I'm going to do you a favor. I'm going to put this woman on that girls like, because I remembered her from before. Her name's Joyce Meyer. And then what happened?
You turned the TV on, and there she was. It wasn't like tune in at Tuesday, 4 p.m. Her message was just beginning. And I remember it was the first time that conviction fell on me, that, oh my gosh, what we're doing is wrong, even though we're married and this is consensual and all this stuff in our eyes. But we didn't get consent from the Lord,
Yeah.
from our Father.
He never gave consent.
So
Yeah. It's non-consensual.
no,
Yeah.
exactly. So,
Exactly.
so I remember just watching her program. I couldn't tell you exactly what the program was, but I remember just feeling this heavy conviction, like, oh my gosh, Lord, like, what are we doing? What am I doing? And I remember at the end of her program, she gave the invitation, and I remember saying the prayer, accepting Jesus in my life. And after that, I had no Christians in my life. At the time, no one in my family that were true Christians, believers. None of my friends, because we were all in that party lifestyle, so nobody was serving the Lord. So all I had at that point, moving forward, was Joyce Meyer on a weekly basis.
Right. So, and we try to keep this as short as we can. It's, my gosh, we could do hours and hours of this. Our testimony is so wonderfully merciful, God. Because, man, for all the years, the enemy tried to destroy the calling that was on my life.
Right.
And it's in a moment that it all changed. But that took a while. I wish I could have said it was like right after you, but and you didn't understand why I couldn't get right with God,
Right.
because I thought, like Hebrews 6:4, that I had somehow committed this unpardonable sin and I was cut off. However, I didn't realize there's a James 5:19 and 20 that says, if one of you wanders away from the faith and someone brings him back, you save a sinner from the error of his way. Love covers a multitude of sins. And sometimes we think our sin is bigger than what God can handle. No. He died for the sins of the whole
Right.
world. No matter what you have done, God is more than enough for you. So we moved to Hawaii, a place that we used to visit. And that's where things began to really unravel for me. And you stuck by me through, my goodness, it was from 2005 until 2009. And so you can share a little bit with what it was like for you. And I know there's people want to understand that how you could stick by me in the midst of the difficulties when I was really had just given up on myself and was living in the world.
Yeah. I think it might have helped that we were both in that crazy lifestyle together.
Yeah.
And I just knew that that you were going to get out of it. I just didn't know it was going to take that long.
Yeah.
5
years.
Yeah. 4 years. Yeah. 2005
4 years.
to 2009. Yeah.
Let's not add another one. It was enough.
Yeah,
misery.
it was long enough. But yeah, at that time we moved to Kauai, bought the business, the kayak business, and I just threw myself into that.
Yeah.
Once again, I didn't have any Christian friends. We knew nobody over there. All the people that we did know definitely were not Christians. We're not believers. So once again, I had Joyce Meyer. I remember somebody giving me a Stormy O'Martin book, Power of a Praying Wife. I remember, just praying those prayers daily.
Oh my goodness.
I really didn't. I had a Bible, but I really didn't read it at that point. So it was basically Joyce Meyer, like that. That was my bread for the longest time, getting the word in through her. But yeah, I remember just throwing myself in the business and just being like, okay, one of these days you're going to snap out of it. But I was really naive, thinking that when we moved to Kauai, because I thought, okay, we're going to move and we're going to get rid of all places, people, things. And I thought for sure that you would have stopped the partying and things like that.
Hold on a second. That's a good point. The people, places, and things. See, a lot of times that is true. Bad company corrupts good morals, but the Bible also says your sin will find you out. And so, the devil knows our weaknesses. And so, I used to have an issue with cocaine. Right. And in Kauai one night we were out, just hanging out, dinner, dancing and stuff. And a guy follows me in the bathroom, locks the door. What are you doing? I'm going to do a rip. What's that? Cocaine. So all of a sudden, here I was. This drug that I struggle with was now forefront again. Yeah. And then it just continued to get worse. I like to say that I used to use cocaine until cocaine began to use me to do things that I wish I would have never done. And in a life that I lived in such guilt, condemnation, and shame. And even though I didn't share these things with you, I remember laying on the couch at our place on the Emily Place. And I was so ashamed of the man I'd become. I'm not now, so I'm just crying because of God's mercy. And I laid on this couch, and I sometimes feel the enemy trying to pull my spirit out of my body, and it freaked me out, and I'd wake up. And this was my prayer. I said, God, I made such a mess of my life. I'm so ashamed at who I've become. If you can forgive me, please just let me die in my sleep. I don't want to live anymore.
Wow.
he had bigger plans than that.
Yes, he
And
did.
you had enough.
Oh,
I think you got to the end of your rope, and then you had a family emergency. Yeah, why don't you
yeah,
share a little bit
yeah.
about that, huh?
I
I
told,
was the
yeah,
family
yeah, you were. I
emergency.
didn't lie, but yeah, I told my employees I had a 2 week window to get away, where I had my payroll done, I had bills done, everything was done. I had a 2 week window, so I told my employees, "Hey, I have a family emergency. I got to go back to Pennsylvania. I'll be back in 2 weeks." So at that time, when Sam was still alive, I let him know what was going on. He took me to the airport. Well, actually, let me back up. You were on a binge, and I
Yeah, I was.
remember I made the reservation for my ticket. I told Sam, I said, "Hey, I'm getting out of here for 2 weeks. I'm like, I got to get my head straight. I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do here." I said, "But your dad's like just spinning out of control." So I remember I had everything packed, everything already in my car that you didn't even know. And I remember I'm sneaking out. You're passed out on the couch, and all of a sudden I go to open the door, and you wake up, and you're like, "Where are you going?" I'm like, I was like, I'm gonna go get some pho. You want some? And I did lie there. I was like not getting pho and coming back. So yeah, so I just went to the airport and got on a plane, went back to Pennsylvania.
Yeah. Yeah, and then I woke up about 10 o'clock or so in a demonic rage. I mean, you weren't there, and I was done with you. I had one time offered you a significant amount of money to leave me, and you said, "I don't want your money. If I can't have you, I'll take my clothes and my pictures and go." I said, "I'll double it." Because I didn't believe you. I didn't understand that kind of love, that unconditional love, that God was actually using you to touch my heart. And you said, "No,
You don't get it.
you don't get it.
It's
You
not
don't
about
get
the
it."
money.
No, I do get it now. Thank God for your love and your patience. You're amazing. And then you had left, and then I went on a binge, and you went back and you told pretty much everybody
Yeah.
that was associated with me in business and some family members of what was going on. This was in 2009. The stock market had crashed in 2008, and actually, God woke me up in the middle of the night and told me the stock market's going to crash. And I remember seeing, the money I had invested just going down to almost nothing, and I was like, wow. I didn't even know what to do about it. And then in 2009, I didn't realize it was negatively affecting my roofing company, my business. I'm not thinking about others. I think I'm not hurting anyone, but I am. I'm hurting a whole lot of people.
Yeah.
You, my family, the people that I was associated with. And then I remember getting a call from a dear brother who runs my roofing company in York, PA, Troy Smith. And he said, "Hey, boss, I thought you might want to know. I know what you're doing over there, but guess what? We might not make payroll this week, okay?" Click. And all of a sudden it dawned on me that I was the most selfish man that I knew. And I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. And I took a large amount of cocaine and flushed it. I cleaned up, and I just said, really, not long after, I shaved my head like Britney Spears did when she was going through her stuff. I didn't want anyone to know who I was. I remember this homeless guy, Mikey, saying, "I still know who you are." I'm like, the Lord had spoke to me, no matter where you go, what you do, you cannot hide from me. Another time before that, and God knew right where I was. And he wasn't mad at me. He hated what the sin was doing to me. He so wanted to rescue me out of the life that I was living. I just didn't understand that. But I passed this sign at Kapaa Missionary Church, and it had the scripture, John 14:15 on 14:15. "If you love me, obey my commandments." And there I had an epiphany. And I went, oh my God, that's it. I don't love you. I don't obey your commandments. I've tried and I can't, and truthfully, I don't want to. But I know that you love me, or I wouldn't still be here. And if you take me back, I will give you my life and let you be in charge this time. I said I hadn't done such a good job of running the show. And that was really all it took. And then at a similar time, tell them about what was going
Yeah.
through in your world. This has all happened in similar
Same
times. You're
time.
in Pennsylvania, I'm in
Yep.
Kauai, and you were making some phone calls. Go ahead and share some
Yep.
of that, yeah?
Yeah, I was making some phone calls and
What kind of phone
so we're from a small town, Hanover, Pennsylvania, and I started calling attorneys because I really thought, I'm like, oh, here goes another marriage, because I was married before, and I was like, here goes another one. So I might as well just get a divorce and just start over again. So I'm calling attorneys, and they're either not taking new clients, or I know Keith, it's a conflict of interest, or, they wouldn't call me back. So it was like God was blocking those doors. He was shutting those doors. And I remember walking around our farmhouse and having a moment as well where I'm yelling at God. I'm like, why is it that I can change? Why is it, that I can stop doing the drugs and, and the party lifestyle and the pornography? I said, why can I stop and he can't stop? I just don't get it. I don't get it. And I remember just saying, I just want my marriage back. I just want my husband back. And I had the Bible. I was walking around with the Bible that I didn't read, but I was walking around. And I was just, having my moment with God. And I remember throwing the Bible down on the table, and it opened up to Malachi 2:16, and it jumped right off the page, for God hates divorce.
Isn't that
And
crazy?
I didn't even know that was in
Wow.
there because I didn't read the Bible. So I'm like, are you kidding me? Are you
Both
kidding me?
failed at marriage,
Right.
but God hates divorce. He hates divorce.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I know many people have been through that, but I want you to know that God still has a plan and purpose.
Absolutely.
The best you can do is you remain as you are, right?
Absolutely.
And so continue.
Yeah, so I just remember, just screaming out to the Lord, like, well, what am I supposed to do? If he can't change, what am I supposed to do? And I remember the Lord saying to me, you're praying all wrong.
What do you mean?
I was praying selfish prayers. I was praying prayers like, make Keith better so my life will be better. Make Keith better so I don't have to go through all this drama. Make Keith better, and not really caring about your eternal soul, your eternal salvation. And when the Lord spoke to me saying, Gayle, you're praying all wrong. You're praying selfish prayers. And Satan is asking for his life.
Yeah. I remember that.
He's showing me this image of you being on a ledge and being separated from him forever.
Yeah. Wow.
And that freaked me out.
I think, Gayle, how would you help other women or people that have been through what you've been through, to help them to see, how are you able to forgive me? How are you able to be able to pray like that? I mean, maybe have you thought about that much?
Yeah,
or?
I mean, it wasn't easy. I mean, trust me, there were times where I did not want to pray for you. I was so angry with you. I was so frustrated with you. And the Lord would just show me, like his mercy and his grace on me. All the years that I lived separate from him in rebellion and doing things on my own. And I knew you were so close. Like, I knew you had a calling on your life. I knew just the way you interacted with people and you loved on people, even when we were partying, you know what I mean? It's like you just had this way about you. And I knew that the Lord was going to use you mightily. And I knew that he was going to take our mess and make it into a message.
Oh, that's a
so
good word.
I know it's like at that time, trust me, like I said, like I didn't want to pray. And the Lord, sometimes I would pray in my prayer language. I would be praying in tongues because I was so angry or frustrated or mad that the words wouldn't come to my lips. So I would just cry out. I remember, times just bawling and crying on my knees and just asking the Lord just to help you and for him to change you, because I couldn't change you. Yeah. There was nothing I could do, I could say, persuade, anything to change you. It had to come from the Lord.
Yeah, that's really good. Yeah, that is absolutely true. When we try to change someone, we can't.
No.
And I talk about evangelism a lot. I've spoke on it. I've taught on it. And I tell people that, there's one type of evangelism that I think people are neglectful of, and that's the evangelism of prayer.
Absolutely.
I am an absolute product
Guaranteed.
of people praying for me, not just you, but many others, right?
Absolutely.
And that's it. It was the encounters that I had with God, independent of people talking to me, but because people were praying for me. I mean, I had, I tell you once, well, you know this story. I'll share this. One night I was back when I was doing cocaine with some friends in Hanover, and we're partying, and the guy says, "Hey, I got to ask you a question." And I said, "What's that?" I said, "I got to ask you about God." I said, "Oh my gosh, I don't want to think about God."
Right.
Thank God that God wanted to think about me though, right? And I said, "That's why I do this. I'm trying to block all that stuff out." And he said, "I can't help it. Then you used to be a Christian. The Holy Spirit enters the party. I no longer can get high. And we do all the coke, and I leave that party, and I feel the presence of God. And I think someone must be praying for me. And I think it's this woman from Ethiopia who lived in York, named Kiddis Mulugeta. And I have her number memorized. I'm not going to say her number on here, but I knew the number. And God blanked me and wouldn't let me remember it. And I thought, well, I'm going to call Troy Smith, that Christian brother that runs the company, right, for me, the one that you told and called me in 2009. And I called him. And he said, "Hey, what's going on?" I said, "Do you have Kiddis' number?" He said, "No." He said, "Keith, what's going on?" I said, "Nothing." He said, "That's not true. I was going to go out with my family and pray for you." And I've been praying for you for almost 3 hours. And I like to say that he doesn't speak in tongues.
No.
He doesn't have the gift of tongues, but he prayed for me in English.
Yeah.
So I always tell people, don't lock God in a charismatic box and think he belongs there and that's where he only lives. I mean, God's in other boxes and other denominations, and God's used Troy mightily in my life. And he was going to go out with his family for dinner, and the Lord told him that he needed to pray for me. He said, when that phone rang and I picked up the phone and it was you, I was stunned. And I've had so many of those encounters in my life. God is not a cosmic buzzkill trying to steal your fun.
Right.
He's a loving father trying to keep the fun from stealing you. So listen, I mean, we could go on and on and on, but we have a little bit of time here. So let me ask you this question. What kind of husband do you have now?
Oh my gosh, a brand new one who loves the Lord. It's when I tell people, when they're like, "Oh, what do you guys do? What do you do?" And I said, we're business owners, and we've been entrepreneurs. I said, but right now the Lord has us in a place where we're able to travel and preach the gospel. And I said, the one thing about my husband that I love so much is that he is in the Word so much that when he speaks, it just comes out of him.
Amen.
And I love that about you. And yeah, I mean, the man that you were. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And what kind of marriage do we have now?
I have an amazing marriage.
Yeah.
I am so thankful for what the Lord has done, not only individually, in each of us, but in our marriage and how he restored it and redeemed it. And I'm so thankful for that.
And I want to say this about you, Gayle. I love you very much. I honor you. And it's almost like the person I'm married to now is not the person that I married then. And it's so, you're so different, and you become such a woman of God, and everyone that we're around, everyone just realizes your kindness and how you are with people, and I just see that in your life. And so I guess to finish it up, I would just like to say to everybody out there who's getting a chance to watch this that we are now hope dealers, and your life is not hopeless. He is the God of all hope, and no matter where you've been, what you've done, or what's been done to you, what Christ accomplished on the cross is greater, and there's nothing that can separate you from the love of God. Think about the demonic man that had a legion of demons. They couldn't keep him from coming to Christ. So no matter what circumstances or what you've been through or what's been done to you, I want you to know that God loves you. He has a purpose and plan for you, and all you have to do is just come to him and say, please, Jesus, help me.